Just show you some of the features, and if you're familiar with Lightroom, then some of the terminology, some of the feature sets are going to be very similar, and that you'll see. And then we'll talk about just the closing comments, backup strategies, things to keep in mind as photographers, just a general session before I end. Okay, so we're going to jump right into Adobe Bridge. What is Adobe Bridge? Okay, so Adobe Bridge is a really good file management system, and it helps us efficiently organize our images. And as I mentioned, not just images, but other file formats too. And I'll talk a little bit about those. The image editing perform all typical functions expected of an image editing program. And that's true. The basics that you find in Bridge are going to be very similar to what you'd find in Lightroom, what you'd find in Capture One, what you'd find in Affinity, what you'd find in On1. So some very good editing capabilities right in there. Bridge is often used as a companion to Lightroom and Photoshop. And for me, that's how I use it. I'll talk a little more about it, but I use Bridge to be able to pull the images off of a camera card. And then from there, I do my culling and then move images into Lightroom that I want to keep, so I can keep my Lightroom catalog pristine. I've noticed that Adobe Bridge is also a companion program for every application that Adobe has in their Creative Cloud. So it's actually a very robust and powerful image managing system if you manage all types of different file formats. And as I mentioned, it's not just for Adobe applications. You can actually manage files in other formats too, and I'll talk about those. So within Adobe Bridge, I'll show you some graphs here in a minute that show you what you can actually do. But within Adobe Bridge, you can actually manage 64 different file formats. And we can see we've got the raster formats, which is our images. We can capture 3D formats and manage those in there. Asset document formats, Word documents, Google documents, things like that, PowerPoint presentations. And multimedia, which is our streaming media for either sound and or video, archive formats, and also other formats too. So Adobe Bridge is very robust in what it can actually manage. And so here's the graphs that kind of show you what Adobe Bridge can do. And you'll notice that on the left-hand side of these, you see the file formats that it can actually manage under each one of these. And there's these columns. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through each one of these columns, but just wanted to show you how Adobe Bridge is extremely versatile in what it can do, how it can manage images and other data and files, and what you can actually do once you've got those files added into Adobe Bridge. So there's our 3D formats. There's our supported asset document formats. Documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, you name it, pretty much any type of document that we create, we can actually manage if we so desire in Adobe Bridge. Multimedia formats, and also supported archive formats and others. So I think that gives you a snapshot that even if you don't use these for Adobe Bridge for images, then it may have some other functionality that you may want to use if you manage many different types of file formats and you want just one collection point where you can view, manage, and find all of your information. All right, so what are the differences between Bridge and Lightroom? So the common features are that both allow for some of the basics that we would expect: sorting, filtering, creating collection sets, albeit Bridge is not quite as robust as Lightroom, but it does allow you to do that. Also, it gives us some very good editing tools, and so many tools that we see in Bridge, you'd find the same in Lightroom. They may look a little bit different, but the same functionality is there for the most part. Both have robust image import and export utilities. And so the differences between the two is that both of them, although they have somewhat similar characteristics, they are different programs and they look and behave differently compared to each other. Lightroom certainly has the superior photo editing feature sets beyond that of Bridge. In Lightroom, we can do things like merging images, for an example, that we can't do in Bridge. So it does have some superior tools in Lightroom versus Bridge. Lightroom has a very robust data-driven image management system, whereas Bridge doesn't. That's really the key to Lightroom, where strength is, that because it has a database where it's managing all of the information, then it makes it very speedy to be able to retrieve and manage our information or our files versus that of Bridge. Lightroom allows for non-destructive edits with unlimited undos. And for those not familiar with non-destructive edits, when we import a file into Bridge or certainly into Lightroom, then we spend a lot of time with the image to change the contrast, change the exposure, change all of that. All of that information is maintained by Lightroom in the background, if you will. It never writes any information to the original file. So if ever we need to go back to the original file, we can do that and void of any of the edits that Lightroom's done. That's a really nice feature because we always want to preserve our original image, and so a Lightroom and Adobe is cognizant of that and doesn't do anything to change the characteristics of the original image. Lightroom also has the capability of what's called virtual copies. And that is that if I'm editing an image and I get to a certain point and I think, you know what, I've got a couple of different options on how I can manage this information or how I can manage this file from this point forward. So I'm going to save a virtual copy so I can do some edits and some what ifs in a couple of different ways. The virtual copy that I create, and I'll show you, well, I'm not going to get into Lightroom, but suffice it to say that on a virtual copy, then we can do the same non-destructive edits. We can do that all autonomous from the original file and also autonomous from the original file that we were working with to the point where we created that virtual copy. So very powerful being able to work with virtual copies within Lightroom. Lightroom allows for what I call round tripping, which is that if I've got an external editor and Topaz Labs has some products that I think some of us use. One of my favorites is Denoise AI for taking the noise out of images. It does an extremely good job. That's one of Lightroom's strengths, is that I can actually select an external editor. It'll take that image into the external editor where I can do whatever I need to do to reduce noise in the case of Denoise AI. Then once I save the image, it then takes that image back into Lightroom and adds it into the catalog, if you will. So very powerful. Bridge doesn't allow you to do that. Okay, Lightroom has a much faster and more efficient search engine. Again, because of it being database driven, then it's a lot quicker than what Bridge is. But so that's one of Adobe's or one of Lightroom's strengths is in finding images. With Bridge, it'll save the edits, but it doesn't record them in the same way that Lightroom does. And so, again, Lightroom's got some strengths over Bridge in that regard as well. Now, on the flip side, if you're managing different types of images, then Bridge is a very good file browser for viewing folder content. And as part of that, as I mentioned, is the ability to recognize 60 different file formats. That comes in handy because, excuse me, if I'm on a road trip or I'm traveling and I create some video, maybe I've created some text in preparation for a newsletter or posting out to my website, I've got my images. All of those I can bring into Adobe Bridge and I can put those into a single folder. So as I go through and manage the information I've collected on one of those photography trips, then all of the information is in one place. And so Bridge is a shining star when it comes to doing that, whereas you can't do similar things in Lightroom. All right, so I mentioned that we can import the images into Lightroom or into Bridge, and I just want to go through that process real quick. Okay, so this is the Bridge user interface, if you will. And so you notice on the left-hand side here, we have our folders. In the middle here, we're going to see in a minute as we import some data. This is where we actually see our images and content of the folders. And then on the right-hand side, we'll see here shortly the images or the information that's associated with each one of our images. So in Adobe Bridge, if I go up to the menu and I select this camera with the plus sign on it, then what that'll do is to evoke this photo downloader. In here, then if I've already plugged my SD card from my camera into the slot on the computer, then it'll show me that camera, or show me the SD card. It'll also show me all of the contents with that SD card, and I can uncheck all and just select a few if I just want to bring in a few images, or I can just leave it where it defaults to selecting all of the images and then bring them all in. So what I want to do is to just run down some of the things we can do during the import process. And here's where I really like Adobe Bridge for bringing images off of the SD cards. So the first thing I'm going to do is to choose my folder. And for this instance, I've created us a folder, WNWP Bridge Demo, and I'm going to open that. The next thing it's going to ask me to do is, do you want to create subfolders? And for me, I do that all the time. Here's some of the options you have available to you. If you want, you can create a custom name for folders. My preference is, though, I'd like to see my images, regardless of which cameras they come from, in a single folder. And that way I know if I went to do some photography in Costa Rica back in December of 2019, then I can just look for my folders of 2019 and I've got all of those images. So you can see that you can also create the date in the formats that you like. The reason that I select the year, month, and day is that that then lists all of the folders in a chronological order, if you will. So it makes it much easier to be able to scan down through the folders looking for a particular month and year that I created the images. There's also then something called the rename files, and I use this all the time, and I'm going to show you how I use it. But you can see when I click on that, then I've got a whole bunch of different options that have been or presets that I can select from. Today's date, shot date, and format, shot dates with a custom name. So really you can rename your images any way you want. The reason I like doing that is that all of us have cameras that once you get up to 9,999 for Nikons, for instance, then it'll roll back to 0001. Well, if I'm out in Costa Rica and I've taken 5,000 images, that means I've got multiple instances of 0001, which is meaningless to me. However, the way that I choose to do it, and I'll walk you through this, here's my preference. And that is within Adobe Bridge, then here's my default import. The date time, and you're going to see this first line is by year, month, and day. I then create this plus button to create another line, which is also the time and date created. And this time is going to be hours, minutes, and seconds. And so if you wanted a unique file name in every instance, then that would be enough right there. Regardless of camera, unless you've got cameras synced, and so when you press the shutter button, then both of the cameras take the images at the exact same second, then this will always give you a unique file name. Now, for me personally, then I like to see, even though each one of the images has its own file name, I like to add some text on the end of it with a 4-digit number. That way I can just go through real quickly in a folder and be able to quickly identify how many images I have in there. So there's something that you don't necessarily need to do, but it's something that I've done. And you can see that here's the new format that it'll give me. And you can see there's the year, there's the month, there's the day. Now we're getting down to the minutes or the hours, minutes, and seconds. And then there's our unique name at the very end of it. So that's my preference. But anything that makes sense to you during this import, then you can set any criteria that you want to rename your files that make sense for you. All right, so I'm going to talk about this template here a little later on. Suffice it to say that I've got one created for panoramic photography, which also pre-populates the metadata. And we're going to spend some time here shortly talking about metadata. and actually creating this file. So just bear with me for a minute when I say that I'm just going to use this for this import process. And then when I do the get media, then here's that same user interface that we saw at the very beginning. And here's all of the images that just came in. Okay, so notice over on the left-hand side that I've got my WNWP bridge demo. That's the folder that we designated. You can also see underneath it that these images came from 3 separate dates. And so automatically it's created my 3 folders for the dates on the left-hand side. One thing I'm going to talk about here shortly is setting up collection sets. And so just quickly, I've created a collection set for Arizona, and we'll step through this here shortly. And so all of these images that I've shown right here now, based on the criteria for this smart collection, I've got it containing anything with Arizona, and it is coming out of that WNWP bridge demo and all subfolders. So basically what it's doing is looking at this parent folder, and any images that meet the criteria that are in folders below it is going to pull in and show me in this window. All right, so if I click on any image, then over on the right-hand side, then I can see my image. I can also see some information below it, and this is what we call metadata. And I'm going to jump over into metadata and mention what metadata is and how it's generated, just so we've got a good understanding of metadata. So metadata is actually something that's managed and introduced by the International Press Telecommunications Council, IPTC. And if you've ever looked at metadata, then you're probably going to see a section designated as IPTC. That is this outfit that produces these standard protocols that every image software company would use this protocol in assigning and managing information for the metadata. Okay, basically for metadata, there's 3 general categories. One is the descriptive, and we can see here headlines, captions, keywords. That's something that we'd certainly be adding, and we're going to talk about here shortly. The next section is the rights. Who is the digital owner of the information? Now, this information that we're looking at won't necessarily come in from the camera. It's something that we're going to add later on, and this is something I'll talk about as we go through setting up a profile for our templates. And then we have the administrative, which is location, instructions, job identifiers. If we're doing this as a company project, then it may be that we want to identify the metadata or the images to a particular job. So metadata allows us to do that. Now, as far as storing metadata, there's 2 ways of doing it. In JPEGs, the DNGs, the PNGs, TIFFs, for example, then all of that is embedded in the file. So if we go to a folder and look at those images, then we're going to only see the one file, even though we may have added metadata to it. The other way is external. And if any of you have used Lightroom, which I know a lot of folks have, you've used ON1, you've used Capture One, any of the programs, then quite often during the setup, it's going to ask you how you want to manage the data. And usually it's going to be external. And so that's what they call a digital asset management system. And it's often referred to as a sidecar. And I'm sure you've heard that terminology. But in Lightroom and some of the other products, what they do is to create a companion .xmp file. And that is where the information is always maintained. So if I were to go to look inside a file to look for my images, in this particular case, I'd see one file with the image name, and it might be a NEF, which is Nikon's proprietary raw file format. I'd also see a second companion file, which is the same file name, but it'll be an XMP, which is the sidecar file. So 2 ways of managing metadata, and that's what metadata is, and we'll talk about that shortly. Okay, so as far as the file properties, here's the first set of metadata, and this is generated by the camera, and we see things like the file name. The file name is not the file name that came in from the camera, but in this case, it's the file name that I've created for this particular image based on my criteria. Also going to see some other information based on time, size of the file, dimensions, and so forth. Okay, the next section is this IPTC, and this is the part that this company has written standards for. And this information, we can have the creator, the owner, addresses. There's a lot of information that we can add to an image as it's imported from an SD card to add to the image as part of our image management protocol. And I'm going to talk about these and actually go through, and we'll set up this metadata here shortly. But I just want to run you through the different sections that you would see in Bridge. And also you'd find these same ones in Lightroom as well. Okay, the next section is the camera data, which is we know as, we refer to that as the EXIF data. And that's information about the exposure, about the ISO, about the focal length, all of the information that was captured at the time from the camera, for both the camera body and the lens, and all the settings that were that we had at that point in time when we clicked the shutter. The last section is the GPS. Now, I'll just say right now that some cameras, they actually collect the GPS information for you. So when you import the images into Bridge, this information is going to be there pre-populated. For Nikons and some other camera brands, unless you've got an attachment, then this GPS information is not there by default. So I go through and add the GPS information later on. And how I do that is that when I'm in a location with my camera, then I'll use my smartphone and I'll take a picture of that exact same location. And then when I come back into the office and download all of my images into Bridge, then I can use my smartphone and actually get the latitude, longitude, and altitude from the smartphone. So I can add that to the images that I've collected in that particular location. So if your camera doesn't collect this GPS information for you, that's a great way of doing it, is to use your smartphone. Of course, the backup would be to use Google Maps or Google Earth, which is another good way of getting your information for the GPS coordinates. All right, so I mentioned that we can actually change the metadata template and to populate these fields any way that we want. So how you do that is we've got these horizontal bars just right up above the metadata keywords fields. And if I click on that, then one of the options on there is to create metadata template. So as I click on that, this is what the screen looks like. And so I've created a, just for this particular presentation, I've created a WNWP metadata. And you can see that off to the left-hand side of the screen, I can select or deselect any information that I choose to be populated when I bring an image off the SD card. It'll grab the information from this template and actually add it to the image during that import process. So once I've created this data, then for every image I import, it'll always have this information stamp on it with the information that I've designated here. Now you can see I've got this vertical sliding bar, which implies that there's a whole bunch more stuff below where we are currently. So we just wanted to use this as an example that if you want to set up a template, here's where you'd come to be able to do that, to pre-populate the metadata as it comes in from your camera, from the SD card. All right, so now we're going to get into keywords. Before I get into how we manage keywords in Bridge, then I think it's worthwhile just to talk about keywords for a minute, just so we're on the same page as why we would design keywords, what they're used for. Okay, keywords, for me, there's a few criteria that I use for the keywords. They're describing elements within the picture. So it could be dog, could be a tree, could be a boat, could be anything that you want to assign a keyword for. And it's also describing characteristics about an image. For me, I like to capture the environmental conditions. Was it cloudy? I capture some architectural information. Did I take the picture inside a fort, or did I take the picture inside a particular type of building? So I like to be able to assign as much information to keywords as possible for two reasons. One is that once I've got the image into Bridge and I've also taken them over into Lightroom, then I can quickly categorize the image. If I want to add images up to upload them to Adobe Stock or some other photo warehouse, then I've got these environmental conditions and architectural requirements or elements, if you will, in the image, which makes it much easier for someone to find the image if they're looking for something that is on the inside of a fort, for an example. Okay, so with our keywords, I'll say right now that for Adobe Bridge and Adobe Lightroom, when I assign keywords, then they'll assign them in alphabetical order. Now, for us, that makes sense because we can scan through them if we're looking for a particular keyword. However, if we do upload our images to a website or to Adobe Stock or to, you name it, there's a bunch of photo warehouses out there, then we would want to reorganize them to where the strongest keywords are at the front of the group. And the reason we do that is that for Google, for Bing, for any of the search engines, then they give more weight to keywords at the beginning of the keyword string than what they do at the very end. So if I'm getting ready to upload an image into Adobe Stock, or once I get it into Adobe Stock, I'll then go back in to reorder the keywords based on the priority that I want, knowing that people are going to be able to put in a keyword search for a specific keyword. And if that keyword is at the very top of the list, then I know they're going to find my image. Okay, so the more specific and targeted the keyword is, the better chances of someone finding your image. So if in the case of me with the fort, let's just keep on going with there. I mean, there's probably 1 million images of forts, but if I can add the exact fort that I took the picture at, if I can give the location of where that fort is, if I can give some characteristics, maybe there's a cannon in the fort, or there's a window or a portal or something, if I can add those as keywords, then anybody looking for that image just putting in those particular keywords, instead of finding 1 million images with fort, if they've put in that criteria, then guess what? My image is probably going to show up in their top 10 based on the keywords that they've entered and the keywords that I've got assigned to the image. Okay, I'm going to create a poll on our Facebook page later on. I know that some folks, in fact, a lot of folks have their own web pages, and I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with search engine optimization, and I'm not going to go into it in too much detail right now. Suffice it to say that keywords are part of a search engine optimization campaign, and typically at a minimum, then these campaigns can take into consideration keywords relevant to context and images, metadata. As I mentioned, that's information about the image that may not be contained in keywords that someone may be looking for. Design, and here we're talking about the actual website that we design. Is it engaging? Is it visually pleasing? Backlinks, that means that not only am I linking to other websites with relevant information, but more importantly, those relevant websites are backlinking into my website. And so that, for Google, gives the website much more credibility if we've got these backlinks that go back and forth to other websites, particularly the links that come back into my website. The actual the language the web page has been written in, HTML is still the preference for search engines because it's very clean information to go through. Intuitive. When I go to the website, not only does it look pleasing, but can I click on links and it takes me to where I'm expecting. So how easy is it to navigate? Marketing. Do I have a cross-brand platforming? If anybody's seen my watermark, if anybody sees the logo on top of this, if anybody sees my business card, then I've got the same logo on each one of those. So I've got the same branding, if you will, regardless of platform, whether it be Facebook, whether it's on the website, whether it's on business cards, whether it's on sales and marketing material. So that becomes important, is to have a standardized marketing brand, if you will, for your images. And then strategy. How do you want to position yourself within the market? If you're a niche market, then that may dictate on how you assign keywords. So as I say, that's just a quick snapshot about the search engine optimization. That may be something that I create a newsletter for in the future. This could also be a presentation, because there's a lot of information we need to consider as part of a search engine optimization campaign. So as I mentioned, I'll probably put a poll up on our group just to see if there's interest, and if there is, then we can kind of go from there. All right, so there's two basic methods for adding keywords. One is to add the keywords directly into Bridge and or Lightroom. The pros of doing that is that it takes very little work. I can just add those keywords on the fly, and it becomes very easy to add them. The downside is that I find that inconsistency with keyword assignments. Maybe there's misspellings. Maybe I've used other keywords on one image and different keywords on another one, and so there's a mismatch of how I've used the keywords. The other one, which is the one I prefer, is method 2, and that's to create a hierarchical list where we can select the keywords for each one of the images or image sets, and that gives us some consistency on how we apply our keywords. The downside is that requires more effort to create that list. However, just keep in mind that's a one-time thing. Once we have our keyword list, then we have that that we can pull from and assign keywords going forward. So it's certainly worth paying. All right, so first thing we're going to do is talk about adding ad hoc keywords in Bridge, and very similar to Lightroom as well. But the first method is if I click on an image, then over on our right-hand side, if I click on the metadata tab, then what that'll do, and I click on this pencil, then it'll turn this into an editable field. The one thing I like about Lightroom is that it'll turn that editable field in white. In Bridge, then it just gives this border around it. And I just know that I can click on the inside of those and add or delete keywords as I see fit. So once I've added those keywords, then they're now assigned to the image. So that's the quick and dirty way of getting keywords into the image. The other one I'm going to spend a little more time on, though, is creating the hierarchical keyword list. And as I mentioned, this gives me consistency with the keyword assignments. It does require more work up front to create it, but once it's created, then I've got my keyword list that I can use going forward. So if anybody's familiar with working in a text editor, this just happens to be on my Mac, but Windows has the exact same text editor as well. And for me personally, here's my preference of doing it, and that's to create this in a text file. However, that said, I'm going to show you here in a few minutes how I can also create my hierarchical list right within Bridge, which would be also similar to Lightroom. Okay, within here, if I create my this file, then it's a tab delineated file, meaning it's indented for each one of the hierarchical keyword sets. And so if you look to the left, then my WNWP, that's what I consider to be my parent level, or level 0. The next indented layer is level 1. The next layer of indented information is level 2. Then you see further down, I've got level 3 and level 4. Typically, I only ever go down 4 levels. Much more than that, then there's just way too much information to include in an image. However, there is occasions where I've also got a level 4 because I need to explicitly say, maybe in this particular case within this county, the exact location that I was in regard to the town name or the location or the Indian reservation where this some of the images are taken from. So in general, level 4 is probably as low as you should get. But if you need additional information, then if it makes sense to go to a level 5 or a level 6, then by all means do it. Right, the beauty about doing this is that once I've created a text file, then I can import this into Bridge. I can also import this into Lightroom. And where that becomes very powerful is if I've got one list that I've imported into both Bridge and Lightroom, as I move images from Bridge into Lightroom, then I know that my assigned keywords are going to be identical because I'm basically pulling them from the same list. So they'll populate in Lightroom without any conflicts. Right, so I've selected an image, and so right now what I'm going to do is to click on the Keywords tab, and I'm going to show you how we pull in that text file. We're going to click on this menu icon, which is these 4 lines, the horizontal lines. Once I've done that, then it's going to bring me up to this menu where I just select Import. Then from Import, I just navigate to where my text file is. I select that and open it. And now you notice I've got another group called WNWP. And if I expand that, then I can see my list. Also, you can see at this point that I don't have any assigned keywords because I haven't selected anything from this point from my list. So here's the hierarchical list that we've just imported. And just for, so you can see a comparison, here's our text file. And if you look, you can see here's our parent, the WNWP. Over here in our list is WNWP. Here's our first level of information. Here's our first level of information. Here's our second level of information under genre, and here it is. So there's how, within Bridge, here's how we would see our list that's being created from our import text file that we've created externally using an editor, text editor. So that's the reason I like doing this, is because it imports and follows the hierarchical indents or the tabs from the text file in my list of keywords. Okay, so here's our keyword list, and you can see that I've got a few of these check marked. And as I check mark these, then what they then do is to come up and populate up here in this assigned keyword field. So again, makes it very nice just by selecting these, because I've got consistency now in my keywords, and I've also selected them. And if I've got a group of images that have all come from the same location, they've all got basically the same information, I can select multiple images and go down through here and check the appropriate fields, and then it'll assign these keywords to all of the images that I've got selected as I go through this process. So it's a really nice way of assigning keywords to a single image or multiple images. Right, so the other way I mentioned is that we can create the list on the fly, and I'll just do that real quick on how I may do that. So you see right now we don't have any assigned keywords. I've clicked on WNWP, and I'm going to assign a new sub keyword. And as I do that, I'm going to create one called place. And when I enter that information, it's going to assign that as a keyword underneath WNWP. I'm going to add a couple more as part of this process. I'm going to add one for USA and Arizona, just so we can see what this looks like. So in each instance, I've clicked on the keyword that I want to assign a sub keyword to. I do that right mouse click, add a keyword, and it'll assign it. I then clicked on place, assign a sub keyword, which is USA. Did the same thing for Arizona. So you can see here within Bridge, then even without the text file, then I can build this robust hierarchical list from within Bridge. Now, as I mentioned, that I can either import keywords into Lightroom and or Bridge. Conversely, then if I've created my list in Bridge, then I can actually export it and then import from that same file into Lightroom to give me the same keywords in Bridge and in Lightroom created from within either one of those applications. So it becomes quite powerful. So for this one, so now you can see I've selected place, I've selected USA, I've selected Arizona. And if you look up in assigned keywords, then you can see here's my 3 keywords that I've just selected. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you notice, these are all in alphabetical order. And so if I were going to upload this, then that's fine for here. But once they get to the place where I'm going to be exporting an image, whether it's to my website, whether it's to Adobe stock, whether it's to some other warehouse, then I'd want to, at the time of importing the image, rearrange the keywords that make sense to give the strongest keywords at the front of our list. All right, so, and here again, here's our keyword list, and you can see I did the export once I created these keywords from within Bridge. So here's the resulting text file. You can see we've got that same hierarchical order with WNWP. The next indent is place, next indent is USA, next indent is Arizona, which follows the hierarchical order that we see here in our list that we're looking at in Bridge. Right, so you'll also see that, so now I've got a smart collection, and we'll talk about these here in a minute. But because of the information or the criteria that I've set up in my smart collection is the 4 images that meet that criteria. And we're going to talk about smart collections here shortly, because to me, that's one of the powerful assets that Bridge has. Not as powerful as Lightroom, but it does do a fairly decent job. All right, so there's really 2 types of collections that I work with. One is a collection set. And within Bridge, a collection set is just a folder, if you will, that I can drag or drop images to. Unlike Lightroom, with Lightroom, I can actually create a data set. Then I can add other data sets or smart collections to that folder. So Lightroom is a lot more robust than Bridge. However, that said, Bridge does give us the capability of creating collection sets. Smart collections, and here's how I manage all of my images in Bridge. Smart collection is I can create some criteria for a folder, and based on the criteria that may be embedded in the metadata, then it's going to pre-populate the smart collection folders for me. And that's really nice, because if I want to categorize my images by camera body, by place, by any criteria that I choose, then smart collections do that automatically as images are imported into Bridge. Right, so to add a collection set, then we just right-click anywhere underneath the section that I'm pointing at, and that'll just evoke this menu where I'm going to select a new collection. And once I've added that, then it brings up this blue box where I can type in my collection set name. And once I've clicked the OK, then I can see my new collection set down at the bottom. Now, if you notice, during that process, there was nothing that prompted me for criteria that says, you know, if a file meets certain criteria to pre-populate. So right now I've just got a file, but if I need anything in that file, then I have to drag and drop it in there to populate that collection set. All right, so as I mentioned, just reiterating what I've just mentioned is that we manually manage the content in a collection set folder. All right, so managing smart collections, same thing. We right-click anywhere in this menu, and this time we're going to create a new smart collection. When I do that, it brings me up to this menu that gives us a lot more information. First off, it's asking me, where do you want me to look? And so I've just told it I want you to look in our folder of WNWP Bridge Demo. And I've also got marked down here, include subfolders, which means that all of these folders underneath Bridge Demo is going to look in there. Now, I'm going to tell it that I want you to look in keywords. And if you find a keyword of WNWP, then that's one of the criteria for that folder. And then at this point, I entered that information. What I wanted to show here is that when I click on adding criteria, then let me just back up one. You notice there's a drop-down arrow by this keywords, and also there's drop-downs for contains as well, because as that implies, we can actually better define what criteria we're looking for. But if I click on this down arrow where it's showing keywords right now, here's all of the criteria that you can select when you're creating criteria to populate a smart folder. So you see there's you know, information about the metadata. Could be information about the file itself, certain height, certain width. Could be based on copyright information. For me, this one's going to be on keywords. But you can see here there's limitless information on how you can assign keywords. If I've got multiple camera bodies, then I can even assign the serial number for a camera body. So if I've got two Nikon D850s, then if I see an issue, maybe I've got a dirty sensor that I see in some of the images, then if I've got a criteria that shows me the serial number, then I can instantly look at the images from one particular camera to see if that image is camera body specific. So very powerful in how you can set up these smart collections. And then there's also this match, which is if all criteria is met. You can again tightly define that on what it's going to be doing, and then you can click find. Okay, I'm just going to show you, if you want to add more criteria, then you just simply click this plus button by the side of this one, and it'll now bring you up another criteria list, if you will. And so I've gone through and I've said, okay, so I want my model, if it contains Nikon D500, then I want that as part of the criteria. So now I've said, I want you to build a smart collection, and if I've got the keyword of WNWP and it comes from this camera body, then pre-populate one of the folders. So very powerful. I really like this. All right, so once we've done that, then once we've exited out of that screen, then it'll say, okay, so what do you want to rename, or what do you want to name the smart collection? So we just give it a name, and when we click on it, here's our smart collection right here. Now, if you notice, there's no images here, because at this point, I don't have any images that meet both the criteria of coming from the Nikon D500 and have the WNWP criteria in its information. And here you can see that I don't have the WNWP checked, and so that's why it's not pre-populating. So that's really one of the benefits of smart collections, is you really define these, and more importantly, not only include, but not include things that don't meet the criteria. All right, so now I've got all three of those boxes kept. So here I've got this checked, so here's our WNWP, and that one's checked. So now it meets both the criteria of coming from the Nikon D500 and has WNWP as a keyword. And so that's how we would manage our keywords. All right, so from a editing capability, to evoke the editor, then we just simply double click on an image. And what that'll do is to bring up this image editing workspace that we can manage our images as we go through this. What I'm going to do is just to walk through some of the features that you'll find on the screen. And for those of you familiar with Lightroom, you're going to see that there's some certain similarities here. We've got the histogram, we've got edit, crop and rotate, spot removal, adjustment brush, graduated filter, radial filter, red eye removal, snapshots, and presets. So that's all information or similar functionality that we would also find in Lightroom as well. Aside from that too, just to the left of those panels, we've also got some drop-down menus that gives us some ability to do other things. So in basic, we can change the color temperature, we can work on the exposure, the contrast, texture, clarity, all kinds of information at the basic level. If we want to make any changes to the actual curve, then if we go under curves, then we can see that we can change highlights, we can change lights and darks and shadows. So again, similarity to Lightroom. We have the same features here as well. Detail, sharpening, noise reduction, color noise reduction, things that we would see in there. Now, I just wanted to mention too about noise reduction. Lightroom does a fairly good job, Bridge does a fairly good job, but if you really want better control over reducing noise in an image, I'd highly suggest you look at Topaz Labs and their noise AI product. I don't get paid for that. This isn't an endorsement by any means. Every time I shout the name out, that $5 goes into my piggy bank. It's just one of those products that I find very useful because it allows me to denoise an image much better than what Bridge and or Lightroom can do. So just something to consider. The color mixes, do I want to change the hues or saturation or luminescence of any of the information in the image? Split toning, optics. Optics is that if I've used a particular camera and lens then sometimes we find that we get distortion. Barrel distortion is something we see quite often. What this optics means is that it'll, by clicking those, based on the lens that's attached to the camera body, it's already got a built-in profile to reduce or minimize or get rid of any of the barrel distortion or any other issues that are typical of that optics that we have on the camera. Geometry, effects, grain, vignetting, and then calibration. Calibration is if I see an image, a printed image that's different than what I see on the screen, then calibration is something that I would do to be able to change the screen colors to match an image or a print. We can do the same thing in Lightroom as well. So that's just a quick and dirty look of what Adobe Bridge has as far as image editing offerings. And as you can see, it's quite robust. It doesn't compare to Lightroom, but it gives a robust enough set of features that some folks would say, hey, you know what? Bridge has everything I would need. I'm just going to use Adobe Bridge. Okay, one of the things within here that I do, you see there's, I've got two boxes selected. One is this basic, and one is I'm clicking now on auto. And I just want you to see what auto does. Auto for me is when I click on that, what Adobe Bridge and Lightroom does the same thing. Based on what it sees, if you will, in the image, it's going to say, okay, it needs some, it needs lightening up. It needs some adjustments on the contrast or exposure or the color. So it's a very good thing to click on just to take a look. However, quite often, if I've selected auto, I then go back and fine tune it, if you will, to give me an image that I find pleasing, because sometimes selecting auto may not do that. So I'm going to click on auto, and there's only a subtle difference, and I'm going to go back and forth between this. So here's after clicking auto, here's before, and so you can see there's some subtle differences between these two images. If I look over here in basics, then all of these were set on 0 before I clicked on the edit, and you can see that some of these sliders have moved based on what Adobe perceives should be a better image. And so again, I've clicked on auto, nothing stops me from coming back in here and sliding some of these sliders back and forth to get the image the way I like, not necessarily the way that Bridge says that it should like. So it's a good starting point, but may not be the end point where you want to take the image. Right, so closing comments. If your camera allows you to capture images in RAW format, then do it. RAW images contain a whole bunch more images or a whole bunch more information versus a JPEG. Plus, they give you some capabilities that you don't otherwise get. The other reason why RAW is preferred is that it's not compressed. In other words, it bypasses a camera's filters, if you will, or processes for a particular image. So what I take with the camera, that's what's portrayed in the RAW. Whereas for a JPEG image, then it's gone through the camera's processing circuitry, and so it may not be the way I like it. Certainly it's going to be missing some information that I would have got out of the RAW file. So I always recommend capturing RAW files, and if you need a companion JPEG, if immediately you're going to be posting to Facebook, then capture both the RAW and a JPEG image and post the JPEG. Keep the RAW for processing later on when you get back to your office or desktop computer. Design a workflow that makes sense for you. I've walked through some of what I do. Some of it may make sense, some of it may not make any sense at all. So design a workflow that makes for you and stick with it. What I mean by sticking with it is that sometimes there's some other features that may come out of an update of Lightroom, which may be of use to us, may not. If it doesn't make any use to us, or it doesn't give us features we don't necessarily need, then yeah, don't worry about them. Consider using Adobe Bridge as part of your image management workflow. That's what I do. All of my images go into Bridge. I then do the grading, the culling, and everything in Bridge, and then just move the best of into Lightroom. And that way I can keep my Lightroom catalog clean and optimized. So just something that I prefer to do. After uploading images, always take the time to add your keywords on the GPS data. GPS coordinates can help pinpoint locations. For me, another reason why I like to capture the GPS coordinates is if you get into a copyright dispute, then you can show and demonstrate exactly the point you were standing when you took an image, which, you know, if someone had ripped off one of your images, they're not going to be privy to that data. Then take pictures for you and not for other people. As long as your images are visually pleasing, they're technically correct, then the only person you really have to please is yourself. And if you like the images, fantastic. There's a good chance that if your images are technically correct and they're pleasing, other people are going to like them as well. Then the last one is to back up your images and important files on a regular basis. I do this daily, both in real time, and then also I've got an external network drive that I back up the images to. So I've always got, at any point in time, 3 copies of the images. The original one's imported into Bridge and or Lightroom, one to an external drive, and then also I also save them up into the cloud as well. Alrighty, so a lot of information that we've gone through, and so now I'll turn it back over to Paul, and any questions you may have, then I'll go ahead and answer them.
That was an amazing session, John. Very educative, and really, I don't think we will get what you've shared with us anywhere else online. This is very unique and rare information. Thank you very much for all the time and all the effort that you've taken in order to, you know, provide us with this specific session, John.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great. So having said that, John, I'm going to share my screen now, and we could carry forward with the image analysis of the top 10 nominated images, and towards the end we can announce the results of those images that have been selected by our incredible judge for July 2020, Harman Singh. So here we go. Is my screen visible?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Great. So, all right. So first of all, I would like to congratulate all the photographers whose images got nominated for the top 10 finalists for the July 2020 contest in WNWP. And in the meantime, I'm also checking the Facebook profile for any questions. So I won't find any, but nevertheless, if there are any questions that come up, we will switch between the Facebook, any queries regarding the session, and then we can come back to image evaluation. So congratulations to Premal Patel, Anupam Thombre, Marnix Vermassen, Parit Shah, Scott Latham, John of Wright, yourself, as well as Richard Labelle for being nominated for the top 10 finalists. So we are going to review their images one by one. Few of them have submitted really good images, and a couple of their images have been shortlisted for the top 10. In WNWP, with the panel members, we go through a very tedious task of evaluating all the images submitted, and then it is definitely a very difficult task to come down to the top 10. We have a grading tool. It is filled by all the panel members, and then we come down to the top 10 finalists, and the top 10 finalist images are sent to our monthly judge, and who gets back to us with the results. So this is the first image. Definitely, everybody knows we were having the theme that was wild black and whites. So John, I would love to hear your analysis of this image.
Yeah, for me, I just like this image. I like the composition. It's got a great use of negative space. negative space is the space that we see on the right-hand side of the screen. It's got something for the zebra to walk into. I also love the tonal range that is being pulled out of this image from the blackest of blacks to the whitest of whites. Just a very stunning image. I like the good use of the depth of field. In other words, what I mean by that is got a shallow depth of field where in the background we can still make out the environment the zebra's in, but it also really makes the zebra and its shadow the main focus, pardon the pun, the main focus of this image. And so I find this an outstanding image for those reasons.
Yes, yes. And also I really love the way the image has been split with the horizon. The back of the giraffe and the horizon is coming in a straight line, and as well as the leading lines that arch that it's a gridded road. So that arched lining, it really leads the viewers, the eye tracking to the zebra's eye or the zebra's forehead. That's a very nice composition as well. And I believe Anupam and Bristow, Michael, would love to hear from you as well about your feedback about this image. You can unmute yourself.
Hey, hi Paul.
Hello.
Can you
Good
hear
evening
me?
all. Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Hi, actually, very nice image. Especially, I already heard about the technical details that you have already spoken about the tonal range and the leading lines, especially for the composition. The story itself is also giving me a good feeling about it, because I was in Nairobi National Park before, and where I felt not like exactly in wild, but it's looked like man interfered the wild, and this is a story as well, that actually it is crossing
A
a
man-made
vehicle,
road.
track,
Yeah.
a man-made road, and it is coming in intersection with our camera or lens focusing. So which means there is an interaction going on, and it is an engaging picture for me. Really love this image.
Yes, yes. Anupam would love to hear from you as well.
Yes. Two things that I love about this image is that, the shadow. It gives so much information about the source of light, the time when the image is captured. Very beautifully job done to retain that shadow. Secondly, the left hoof and the back right hoof, they both are in action. So,
Yes.
it is a perfectly timed shot. I really love that. Otherwise, I think so. John has covered almost all the points that even I love about the image. Beautiful one.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'll go to the next image now. All right, so this is another spectacular image. This is, I guess this is from Anupam, right? Amazing image. Tack sharp, lovely composition, superb. John, how about you? What do you feel about this image?
Some of the things I like about this, and I really like this image. Again, we've got the negative space to give the cat something to look into. I like the lighting on this. It really enhances the texture, if you will, of the fur. Also got some great catch light in the eyes as well. And I just like the engagement of the eyes on the photographer. Whether the cat was viewing Anupam as the lunch menu, I don't know, but I just like this. I like the use of the negative space again on the right hand side. It really helps give some great perspective. Is a great use of the role of thirds on how we'd set up an image. I love the narrow depth of field on this as well, to really give the attention on the cat. So just and again, the tonal range on this one, we've got the whitest of whites without being blown out. We've got the blackest of blacks without losing any detail. So a very good image, not just from the standpoint of the capture, but also the post-capture processing too.
Yes, yes, superb. Bristow, what do you feel about it?
First thing, actually, I noticed about this picture is its staring eyes and the super sharp
Textures,
details
yeah.
of
Yeah.
textures. It's just attached the viewer to the picture and the subject. And the tonal range, the depth of field, amazing. It's fantastic and a very pleasing and engaging picture for me.
Yes.
Yep,
Correct.
that's what I know.
Yes. And as I said earlier, we all had a difficult time to filter down to the top 10. This particular contest, the black and white contest, was pretty challenging, isn't it, for us to find out the top 10 images than the previous contests that we've had before in WNWP. We had so lovely image submissions that, you know, it was quite, you know, difficult to find out the top 10. Great. I'll go to the next image now. Wow. This is another spectacular image. Superb reflection, and it's a squirrel drinking water. The use of rule of thirds, the equal halves in which the image has been divided. Fabulous image. Yes, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you mentioned, very good. Rule of thirds, I used the rule of symmetry on this as well. Very well controlled from the standpoint of capturing the timing of the squirrel coming down to get that water. So you've almost got the reflection and the squirrel meeting. So I just love the symmetry on this. In this particular case, I also love the black and white treatment. It's a little more subtle and really plays well into this image. The other thing that I find outstanding is also the depth of field control. In this case, we've got a little more latitude on our depth of field, so we can see the plants and everything surrounding the squirrel, including the tail. The trees in the background is a little further into the distance, so blurred out. So we've got some really nice bokeh going on there. So just an outstanding image from both the standpoint of taking the image and also the post-capture processing too.
Yeah. Bristow, what is your feedback?
This is a fantastic image. Actually, it's the first thing that I notice is the catch light and the reflection.
Yes.
Just amazing, because it's very rare to see this kind of because the horizon is on just above the water level, and it is bended.
Yes.
That kind of pose is very difficult to get for a squirrel.
And the perspective, it's a very low level perspective.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing picture.
Anupam, what is your say on this?
Yes. As Bristow said, the first thing that attracts you is the eyes. Okay. Yes. The second thing that I noticed is the texture on the fur of the squirrel is brilliant. It's intact. Okay. And the tonal range on the grass around the squirrel is really beautiful. That makes the grass really stand out as well. I think so. This is a very special image which I saw and rated actually.
Yeah. Fabulous click. Wow, another spectacular image. I would say this is an image with an attitude. Lovely composition, beautiful depth of field all the way from the tip of the nose to the tail, and the background is very soft and creamy as well. Beautifully composed image. John, what do you think about this particular image, King of the Jungle?
Yeah, this image I really like because immediately your eyes are drawn to the face of the lion, so you've got an immediate connection with the lion itself. I like the shallow depth of field because we can see the back end of the lion, but our attention is really pulled into the to the head and the face and the mane. So the depth of field control is magnificent on this. But and again, the post capture processing, I've got the whites, I've got the blacks, but I've still see the detail in both of those. So just a well executed shot from capturing it to the depth of field control to the post capture processing. Excellent, love this one.
Beautiful. Yes, Anupam, what do you have to say about this image?
Yes, I really love this image. When I was actually checking out this image, I opened this in Photoshop, and I really compared this to the Ansel Adams zone system. I could really target those zones on the parts of the part of the lion, as in the mane, the differentiation in the highlights and shadows of the mane. The soft background makes a really appealing look and feel to the image as well. Fantabulous
Yes.
highlights on the face. Very
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes. Yes. Bristow.
Yeah, for me, Paul, actually, the story and the impact. I mean, the impact of this picture was extremely high. I mean, that staring and that attitude and
The
that
pose.
look
Yeah. Yeah.
was itself
Yeah.
is it's showing that I'm the king, and
Yeah.
it captured very well in detail, and the depth of field is fantastic. Amazing picture, amazing picture.
True. True. Let's move to the next picture now. Wow. This is a lovely image. I like the sepia look to it. It's an articulated, like reticulated giraffe. Am I right? I guess so. Looking at the patterns, and and that tree that is on the corner, that's definitely a very unique composition. And the line of horizon is little tilted, but I still don't mind. But a very nice wildlife image with an abstract touch to it. Yes, John.
Yeah, for me, I like this image because it demonstrates one thing, and that is we don't necessarily have to include the whole animal to understand it. The human mind is a wonderful thing. We know what a giraffe looks like, so our mind fills in what's off to the right-hand side of the screen that we can't see. And I love that about an image. You know, it makes you wonder what the giraffe's doing. Is it feeding on a tree? Is it looking at a lion that's approaching? So I like this from that standpoint. I like the composition of this because I like the fact that not only do we have the back end of the giraffe, but if it wasn't for the tree off to the left-hand side, then this image wouldn't have the impact that it does. I love the fact that we've got a secondary focal point on there, albeit it's out of focus, it's not distracting, but it gives fantastic symmetry to this image. And I think in this case, the sepia tone to it as well does it justice because it helps portray the colors that you may see in the wild anyway. I think for me, I'm looking at the stance of the animal and the tree, and both of those are vertical. So if I had to guess, I'd probably say this was taken on a slight slope. So I think that's why the slope on the background.
On the background as well. Yes. Yes. Yes, Bristow. What do you feel about
Yeah,
this image?
it's fantastic wildlife abstract. It's very difficult to make abstracts in wildlife because things are not as we want most of the time. So as John said, if that tree was not there, maybe the picture was completely different. But considering once you see the part of the giraffe, and then immediately you will see that tree, you got all the whole picture of the
Landscape.
scenery in your mind.
Yes. Yes.
Because the connection between that ecosystem and the giraffe, everything connected together. Good picture. Amazing. Nice picture.
Yes. Yes. Anupam, your take
Yes.
on this picture?
Two words that I would say about this is the power of perspective has made this image a very beautiful one. And the second one is the processing or the treatment in sepia. This image would have become a bit dull if it would have been in the regular monochrome, but the addition of sepia has given it a dimension, I believe. So a cracking image.
Yes. Yes. And even I see a lot of hidden geometrical figures in it. Like between the horizon line and the tail, there's a triangle, there's a square between the belly. The other parts are all in boxes. So it's pretty much distributed in geometric segments. And that kind of distributes the eye tracking throughout the frame in a very even manner.
This is more of a fine art and as we said,
abstract mix. Yeah.
Abstract image.
Yes. 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 Great. Great. Let's move to the next picture. Wow, this is another amazing image and beautiful, beautiful. I'll start with Anupam on this. Yes, Anupam.
Okay. Uh, the most important thing that I liked about it is the clarity of the raindrops and the texture on the twig. Then I'll move towards the bird. The catchlight in the eyes is really beautiful. And the bouquet. So that makes this a really worthy image.
Correct, correct. Brewster, what do you say about this?
For me, yes, the first thing I noticed on this picture, it was not the bird actually, the raindrops, uh, because of that dramatic feeling of the picture. And the second thing is the line. The tree is pointed in one direction, and the bird is also looking into the same direction. It's also very fantastic composition achievement, and the tonal range, and also that you feel that you are in that rain. I mean, he made a good justice to the picture on the treatment side.
Yeah,
Specifically for getting these raindrops, as Anupam said, it's not an easy job in black and white. So good picture, nice picture, amazing.
correct, correct. Yes, John, would love to hear your feedback on this frame.
Yeah, for me, I like this one. I love the composition. For me, it puts me right there standing with the bird. And the reason I say that is not just because of the raindrops, but if you look at the bird, it's absolutely soaked. You can tell that all of its feathers are drenched. It's weathering the environment. And so I love nature pictures when it ties the subject in with the environment. And I think this one does that very well, just by the fact that the bird is soaking wet and we're showing the raindrops too. So it really helps tell the story.
Yes, yes, beautiful, very, very beautiful image. As all of you said, I pretty much have the same uh, analysis and the points merits on this image. The raindrops are really crisp. You know, we can literally count, I guess, if we have the time to. They are so much, so very much in detail, and the textures on the wood, and as Bristol said, the direction, everything is pointed towards one direction, and that really has a captivating catch to this image. Going on to the next one. Wow,
Oh wow.
we hardly rarely get to see black and white macro. You know,
Yes.
it's not everybody who opts to get a black and white in macro. It's not very common, and this is an amazing image, and this is definitely by John. I can see his signature below, and fantastic image, John. Lovely textures. I love the way the veins on the wings are acting definitely in symmetry, as well as they are drawing the attention from the butterfly's head to the entire frame. It is filling the frame completely. Beautiful textures, beautiful contrast. I love this image. Yes, Bristow, what do you say about it?
Oh, this is one of my favorite image. Amazing picture, because the first thing is it the angle of that shot is, it's actually piercing your eyes, and it's like a 3D effect. It's just flying into your, or sitting just next to your eye, and the tonal range on that, on the bird, the butterfly wings, and around small flowers. It's a highly impacted, impactful picture. I really
Correct,
like this picture. Amazing.
correct, correct. Yes, Anupam, what do you say
So
about
this
it?
image, when I first saw this image, the first thing that I saw was the degree of the frame, and that was 45 degrees. So it immediately gave that sense of growth. That
The
climbing,
the diagonal
very
approach. Yes.
yes, a very positive image to look at.
Yeah.
And I must congratulate John on this, because the transition from white to those grays on the wings is fantabulous. I mean, um, uh, I'm really amazed how he managed to get that kind of a tonal range. So a really nice one, John, I must say.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's move to the next image. Wow. This one is
Oh,
very captivating. Underwater shark image and the great white. This is, I mean, breathtaking for me because I'm just thinking myself, the amount of preparation that is required to get a shot like this, firstly. Secondly, to start with, photography by itself is an expensive hobby. And moreover, to add on to all the accessories, all the logistics, all the equipments required to go underwater, to reach these locations where you find the great white and then photograph it and come back. I mean, it is definitely a soul satisfying shot. And I really love the negative spacing. It's just bland. It looks like, it's just deep, it's fantastic. I love the reflections of the sun rays coming down the water and those patterns created on the tail and on the main fin. Beautiful image. Love this picture. Yes, John, what do you say about it?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what you said, Paul, is that I like the fact that you can see the sun rays, not just on the shark itself, but if you look at the negative space, then you can also see the sun rays going through there as well. So exceptional image. A lot of guts. I wouldn't be gutsy enough to be in the water to grab this kind of a picture. So kudos, kudos to the photographer for getting this picture. Very well done. I like the framing. I like the composition. I like the use of negative space. Very good image.
Fantastic. Yes, Bristow.
For me, actually, I wanted to ask the photographer what was the focal length he used to make sure that he was safe. Actually, the picture is very captivating. Especially the first thing that I noticed also is the sun rays on the shark and also on the negative space. And also the composition, very neatly done, amazing picture with a lot of respect to underwater and take this effort to take this picture. There is something a hell of a job to do.
I'm sure he was behind a cage or something for protection. That is how I've seen these images being taken. But you still need nerves of steel to do that, even, to
Exactly.
be in that depth and get this image done. Yes, Anupam, how about you?
This is one of those pictures I'd say that I call this an underwear changing moment picture.
Yes, this is superb. Yes, Anupam.
I'm currently looking at this image on a 27-inch iMac, and I can see a small amount of grain on the image, and I feel that this small amount of grain is adding to the beauty and the texture of the entire image. I don't know if everybody will be able to see this on Facebook Live or something, but if you ask me personally, that grain adds to the beauty and the texture of the image. Secondly, I don't know how this underwater photography is done, but definitely I'll love to reach out to this participant and really understand what he exactly did to take this image. Really fantastic.
Superb image. All right, so there you go. That's another one. Spectacular image. Beautiful habitat shot. The lioness on the tree. Amazing. And this is I think this is Anupam, your picture, correct?
Yes.
This is your Masai Mara shot, and beautiful landscape. I like the way the rule of third has been applied, and the branches they act like a octopus. All the branches draw the attention back to the lioness. Beautiful image. John, what do you say about it?
Yeah, I just love this image. I think because of I'm assuming that it was a cloudy day or muted lighting, which really helped this picture out because we were, and Apam was able to keep the definition of the lion, keep the definition in the trees. So just a well executed picture. I like the framing for this shot. I love the fact that the cat's looking off into the distance. So it makes me wonder what it's looking at. And I'm assuming it's probably seeing some zebras or something, roaming across the plane. So it's trying to figure out the lunch menu to see which one it wants to go after. But just a very well executed shot. I also like the control of the depth of field because we can see the mountain range in the background. So we really get a sense of the environment, not just the tree, but also the whole environment that it's in. So, and the tonal range on this is very well done as well. So very well executed image from start to finish.
Exactly, exactly. Bristow.
Anupam, actually, congratulations for this picture. A very nice image, and I want to know how much time you waited for the lion to climb the tree, because it's not normal thing to happen. So one thing, actually, the tonal range is the first thing, and the second thing is uh, the surveillance that he is putting onto the field that he is on, or his territory. He is just taking, surveillance on his territory. Uh, Technically well done picture, and with story, it's amazing. It's a fantastic combination. Really love this picture.
Yes, yes, great shot, superb shot. All right, wonderful. I love this picture. And I know elephants are social animals, and this shows their typical behavior of being social, the bond they have between each other, the way they communicate, and the image as such. It's pretty much symmetrical. Both the elephants looks of the same age, the same size, and that itself creates a kind of a infinity loop. It creates a symmetry that keeps going from one elephant to the other. So fabulous textures of the skin, very soft background behind, good separation, isolation of the image of the subjects. The catchlight is pretty much interesting. Beautiful shot altogether by Scott. Yeah, fantastic image. John, what do you say about this?
Yeah, I love this because I think if Scott had pulled out where we've got a picture of both elephants, the back ends, you'd have lost something with this. I like the fact that he chose to get in more intimate. We see enough of the elephants that we know what they are. We can also tell by the arch back that they're playing, they're tussling. Love the symmetry that you mentioned, Paul, on the tusks and how they're interacting. And also, as you mentioned, the softer background, and another image where the sepia tone really adds to this. So very, very well executed shot from start to finish.
Yes, yes. Bristow, your feedback, please.
Yeah, really nice picture, definitely, and it just shows um, how the elephants behave in the wild when they are playing, or and especially the most important thing for me is that the one elephant looks at the eye contact with the left elephant, that really engaging the viewer.
Yes.
Actually, well done picture.
So, yes, Anupam.
I like the way the photographer has actually cropped the image, very apt cropping, and the depth of field is fantabulous. I mean, the texture on the elephant's body is really talking for itself. This image is full of textures, if you see. So,
Yes,
this
well
is
said. Yes.
a very beautiful image altogether. Action shot.
Great, great.
Yes.
All right. So those were the top 10 finalists, and now we are going to announce the best top 3 images that has been selected by our incredible judge, Harman Singh Sher. Harman is a very renowned photographer who is from Kenya, based in Australia as of now. We would have loved to have him online with us, but due to certain commitments, we could not get him online. And yes, so let's see who the winners are as per our incredible judge for July 2020. John, I give you the honors to announce the winners. All the details are available, and there you go.
No, go for it. I think I've lost my voice after talking through the presentation.
All right.
So please do the honors.
Sure. So there we go. The first prize winner of WNWP July 2020 contest, Wild Black and Whites, goes to Marnix Verman's fantastic image. He has been given the level guru badge, and this is definitely a level guru shot. Lovely reflections and amazing textures. Fabulous shot. And now it's time to announce who has come second. The second prize goes to Parnisha Fantastic. Level Pro badge has been awarded to Parmeet. Image judged and selected by Harman Singh here. Fabulous image. I love the attitude of this lion. Everything about this image is really awesome. Really awesome. Going on to the next image. Yes, one of my favorites, I would say. Richard Labella has been given the Level Awesome badge for this fantastic underwater image of the great white. Beautiful image. Everything about this image is spot on. You know, it is a perfect frame, and something that is I can't even imagine myself doing. Beautiful image, beautifully done. So yes, that's pretty much it. We've got our winners, and congratulations, everyone. It's a fabulous collection of images we have. I can't wait to post the top, the best of the rest images as soon as possible today or tomorrow, because it's going to be a fabulous album this month. It's definitely going to be a spectacular album this month. Yes, so we had an amazing session. Thank you, John, again for giving us all the inputs about Adobe Lightroom image, Adobe Image Management, Adobe Bridge Image Management. Sorry, and I really enjoyed analyzing and evaluating these images with you all. And I wish we had more of our panel members coming in and participating in this as well. Maybe next time. Yes, Bristow.
Actually, I was about to ask, do we have a question and answer session?
I'm still looking at the Facebook.
Actually, I want to ask one question to.
Yes, please go ahead.
John, actually, I started to use Bridge recently, and I really love to do that. I have my question is to how to batch process in Bridge, or how to use the presets in or set presets in Bridge ourselves. This is my question.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit there, Bristow. Was the question on presets?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, my question is actually how to batch process in Bridge like Lightroom, or what are the presets I mean, how you can manually set a preset in Bridge.
I'm with you. Yeah, very similar to Bridge, and without having Bridge up in front of me, I'm not able to walk through the steps. But similarly to Lightroom, then you can create some presets to where when you do an image import, then that'll apply those presets to each one of the images. Personally, I don't do that because I find that each one of the images needs something a little bit different. So when I have used presets, I find I've probably spent more time in Bridge and or Lightroom trying to fix what the presets did, that personally I don't use presets. So I might rely on you that once you become an expert, resident expert on presets, then maybe that's another follow-up Adobe Lightroom Bridge presentation would be to describe how we create those presets and apply them.
Okay, excellent, John. Okay.
So I don't find any other questions that is waiting from the Facebook platform. So
Well,
I guess
I either answered all of the questions or I put everybody to sleep. Either way, it's a win-win. Where's your bedtime over there anyway?
Yeah, it's not very late in most of the countries that we're streaming now. In fact, it is early for you. Rest everybody is pretty much towards the evening zone. So, and pretty relaxed also. It's a Friday. Yeah. So yes.
I think everything was clear from your excellent presentation, John.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So I think I will now conclude this session, and thank you all for watching. All members of WNWP, keep supporting us so that we can keep bringing more and more informative sessions and webinars to you. Thank you all, and have a great Eid celebration today, and stay safe.